Hey guys, we're back again with part number 3 of our LT250R front end rebuilding. Today we're going to be focusing on the steering. This is actually going to be a 2-part video inside of our multi-part series. We're going to be just doing the tie rods today, and then the next video is going to be the actual steering stem bushings. So we're going to be replacing our inner and outer tie rods on both. The boots are fairly cracked. They're not serviceable. There's no grease fittings. So we're going to be disassembling pretty much the whole tie rod, and we're going to show how to do an alignment process as well on your quad. So we're going to move over to the workbench, go over the parts and tools needed. So stick with us. All right, we moved over to our workbench. We're going to be going over the tools needed to do your tie rod ends on your LT250R. Suzuki did a really nice job on this quad. Pretty much all the tools that we use in this mini series for this for our LT, pretty much used in all 4 or 5 videos. They're all the same, pretty much, are all the same size, so it's a very nice quad to work on. We have our grease gun, of course. We didn't get our tie rod ends in yet, so we're not sure if there's grease fittings on them. We may even drill and tap the backside of our tie rod ends so we can make them greasable, so we can service them more often. We have a breaker bar and 13mm to take our wheels off. Obviously yours is going to be different depending on your wheel and year of quad. Needle nose to take out our cotter pins. 14mm socket with an extension. We're using a 1/2 inch, you can use 3/8. These are to take off the inner tie rods. They're a little tough to get to. Take the nuts off. 14mm ratchet wrench for where we can't get our ratchet into. And we have our hammer and our punch. We're using All Balls Racing once again. We're using their tie rod kit. They actually have an upgrade kit, which makes a heavier duty tie rod. We're going with the basic kit. We don't really ride this quad too hard. So if you really abuse your LT250R, we recommend their upgrade kit, their heavy duty tie rod end. But we have our usual anti-seize, air coil, and brake clean once again. So we're going to take all of our tools and supplies, move over to the quad, and get started replacing our tie rods. So we moved over to the quad. We're going to start on our outer tie rods first. This is the left side of the quad. We're only going to show one side. You're going to repeat this process obviously for the other side. First things first, you're going to take out your cotter pin. Once you have your cotter pin out of the way, use your 14mm, either your wrench or your ratchet. Oops. We're going to use the ratchet since the camera's kind of in our way. Position that. If you look closely, right here, you can see the whole tie rod itself is spinning in the housing. So we're going to have to get a little creative and get our saw out. We're actually going to have to cut the tie rod. We don't know how long these tie rods have been on here, so things you're going to have to face, obviously, if you do any repairs to your quad. So we're going to go ahead and cut that off and get it out of our way. So we cut the outer tie rod off the one side. We tried to take the other one off on the other side, and we had the same issue. We're going to have to cut that one as well. We used our Sawzall with a metal blade. We were able to get in between the the hub and the actual tie rod. We had to clean up the top a little bit to drive out the bottom half of the tie rod, and now we're having the same problem with our inner. So we're going to grab our Sawzall again, grab a fresh blade, and we're going to cut our tie rod out right there. Hopefully we get it able to drive out, because we'd like to do all this with the stem in place for right now. We do have another part in this series where we take the stem out, but we'd like to try and show this with the quad as complete as possible, so you guys can tackle this project without having to disassemble everything. So we're going to grab a new blade for our Sawzall, and we're going to cut our left and right tie rod assemblies out, take them out of the quad. We're going to pull our tie rod ends out of the complete tie rod assembly so we can install our new tie rod ends. So we cut both of our tie rods here. We had to cut the inner and outer. But you need a 12 millimeter to hold this nice little spot right here. You can use a pair of channel locks or another type of pliers. You need a 14 millimeter ratchet wrench or a regular wrench, and you can just break your tie rods loose. Now normally we would keep a counted amount of threads that we're threading in here, but we're going to do a full front end alignment on ours, so it's not 100% necessary. We know this one was threaded all the way in, and this is our outer, and then the inner we have a few threads showing. So we're going to take a tape measure and measure. I had about 5/16 of thread on the inside. Now we're going to do an alignment, so it's not 100% crucial to have it right. We just want to get it close. Ooh, this one might fight us a little bit. So we failed miserably at getting our tie rods out of our arms. This one totally locked up. We were able to get one of them out. Can't get this one out. I snapped this one attempting to get it out. So we're actually going to make new arms for ourselves. We're going to cut some sort of piping. I got to figure out the thread pitch yet. We're going to cut new pipes, either thread or buy solid stock and drill and tap it. So much for these stock ones. We're going to make some heavy duty ones, I guess. But this happens obviously when working on a quad that's 20-some, 25, 26 years old. So we'll be back. We'll have new tie rod spacers, arms, and our new tie rods, and we'll put everything back together for you guys. So we actually got our new All Balls Racing tie rod upgrade kit. I know earlier we talked about having to make our own tie rods. Turns out the kit actually comes with two new ones. They're nice. They're actually pretty heavy duty. They have a nice heavy wall to them. You have all your tie rod ends, obviously. New jam nuts for your tie rods. We're really impressed with All Balls once again. They kind of blew this one out of the park big time. This kit actually fits a Honda TRX 400EX and the TRX 400X. And our quad racer, 87 to 92. It's a fantastic kit. Can't wait to put it on the quad. It's going to look awesome. So now we're going to get ready. We're going to assemble our tie rod ends, get our rough measurement once again of what we had. Once we get it onto the quad, we're going to do an actual alignment on it, get everything dialed in perfect, and then we'll take her out for a test ride. Now we're going to build our new tie rod assemblies. Obviously one's left-hand thread and one's right-hand thread. So obviously pay attention to which side you're threading it in. So before you install it into the tie rod, don't forget your jam nut. So this side here is our right-hand thread. And the jam nuts are actually color-coded. Silver is right hand, gold is left hand. So we're just going to park that right about there. And then for the other side, you're going to thread it in. This one's the reverse thread. So we're actually going to set this one out a little bit, kind of match what was on the quad before. Obviously this is just a a starting point. We're going to do the right alignment on the LT before we obviously go for a ride. Comes with 2 new lock nuts for the top and a cotter pin as well for the side. So now we're going to take our new tie rods. We're going to assemble the other one. Obviously they get assembled identical. We're going to take our tie rods now over to our quad and reinstall. Alrighty, so we got our old tie rods sitting here. We're going to be doing just a short little pre-alignment before we install the tie rods on our quad. We are going to take our old tie rod here and we're going to take our tape measure and measure center to center and roughly give ourselves a starting point before we measure anything on the quad. So as you can see here, we're holding 1 inch and we have roughly, I think it's 15 1/4, so it would be 14 1/4 center to center. Yeah, that looks right about right. 15 1/4. Alright, so we're going to put our 2 new tie rods, one at a time, in our bench vise. Alright, since our rods are in, we're going to just do a quick little measurement and see where we're at. So you kind of want to make sure your tie rod ends are kind of straight. They should be relatively straight. We are slightly off. We're like 15 3/16, which isn't bad. We're going to turn out full revolution and see what that gets us. Maybe a little too much. We may have to rotate them both halfway to see where we're at. On 1 inch again. Halfway. So we need to actually go 1 more revolution. We should be right on the money. Now you're going to repeat this process for both sides. They should be equal or you're going to have unbalanced steering. So holding 1 inch again. Look at that. Right on the money. So now we're going to take our wrench and we're going to tighten those down. So we grabbed our 19 millimeter, which is what our lock nuts were. Tighten them down. Remember, one's left hand, one's right hand, so it's going to be opposite, obviously. So we have one set up. We're going to set up our second one now, just so we have everything close. So when we move over to the quad, we can get a closer idea of where we're going to be. Once we get our shocks reinstalled, which are getting painted, and our springs, which are powder coated, we're going to put the quad back on the ground and get a nice level starting point with the quad sitting flat and do a wheel alignment. We'll show you guys how to do that. So once you get everything set, you're going to move back over your quad, get ready to reinstall your tie rods. Moved back over to our Suzuki LT250R, getting ready to install the tie rods. We've got our 2 complete assemblies here. We have our 4 new lock nuts. The tie rods are drilled for a new cotter pin. I don't believe they're 100% necessary because of the nylock. The bolt should not back out, but we grabbed a 4 anyway, just to safekeeping, makes us feel better. We have a 17 millimeter with our 1/2 inch ratchet to tighten our new nylocks, and we have a 14 millimeter to actually use a wrench to keep the tie rod from spinning. So we're going to set up the camera here, get ready to install our tie rods. So we kind of keep it uniform. There's an knurled piece right here on the tie rod assembly. We're going to keep that towards the outside. So you're going to want to drop in your inner, and then pick the arm up and get your outer. Put your nylock on. Same for the inner. That one's nice and tight. Do the same thing in here. So we got our new tie rods in. One thing we forgot to mention when disassembling, we forgot about, is this little washer right here. It goes between your tie rod and your steering stem. You're going to want to reuse those. That helps space the tie rod out correctly. So we grabbed ours. We'll add a little cliff note to the disassembly video just so you guys don't miss that. We got the steering stem pretty straight. It's close. Ignore the headlight and everything hanging down. So our alignment's slightly off. The best way to give yourself a true alignment with the quad up in the air like this is you're going to measure your frame from outside to outside. Find yourself a good center point, roughly in line with your steering stem. You're going to make a mark. We usually do ours in pencil so we can brush it off. And then you're going to measure from the same point. You pick a point, whether it be the outside of your wheel hub to the wheel stud or your disc, and you're going to measure back the best you can to this center point. And do the same thing for both sides. And then you're going to equal out your tie rods so you get it pretty darn close. It doesn't have to be exact. You know, there is some free play in your steering, but the closer you get it, the better. Then once you have that on, you're pretty much dead set for alignment. Stick the quad down on the ground, take it for a spin, see how it drives and steers, see if you guys like it. But that's pretty much it for a tie rod install. We think the quad looks a whole lot better with our new powder coated arms, our new fancy tie rods. They look quite spiffy. So thanks for watching, guys. We're going to be doing a full rear end tear down here in a couple days. So you guys check back soon. We should have some new videos for you guys. Thanks for watching as always, and we'll talk to you guys soon.